This podcast is produced by Outcomes Rocket, your healthcare exclusive digital marketing agency. Outcomes Rocket exists to help healthcare organizations like yours to maximize their impact and accelerate growth. Visit outcomesrocket.com or text us at 312-224-9945. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beat Podcast, recorded at the Vive event in Nashville, Tennessee. I have the privilege of hosting Branden Robinson today. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Sevaro Health. He's got over 20 years of healthcare experience in business development, 15 of which specifically he was focused on digital and virtual healthcare. I'm excited to have him on to talk to us about their focus on virtual neurology. So such a pleasure to have you here, Branden. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're on day 2 of Vive. How was day 1 for you?
Yeah, the first day was pretty great. We had a lot of really good conversations. I think Vive is awesome as a networking experience. So I was able to chat with a number of the other players in digital healthcare and talk about how we could work together to create better outcomes.
That's awesome. Did you do the hosted buyer thing?
I did. I met with 7 individuals yesterday that were pretty good opportunities to learn, what their goals are and their strategies for the future. So yeah, hopefully some things will come out of that.
Awesome, man. Fingers crossed for you. Well, let's get into it. Talk to us about how your organization is helping to drive change in healthcare delivery.
Yeah, so Sevaro Health, we focus on virtual neurology. We do that mainly because we see that there's a lack of neurological expertise and you have an aging population, which means more and more neurological diseases and disorders are going to become more prevalent. And a lot of the hospitals and health systems in the U.S. suffer from not having enough neurologists to provide that level of care. So what we're really focusing on is changing that paradigm and creating opportunities for patients to access neurological services wherever they might be located.
I think it's great, and it's severely necessary, as you mentioned. Of all the applications for digital health, why does Sevaro focus solely on virtual neurology?
Yeah, great question. So mainly because our CEO and founder is a vascular neurologist. So we just decided, instead of trying to be a jack of all trades, let's focus on what we know best.
Yeah.
And when you think about the effects of stroke in the United States, being the 5th leading cause of death, the leading cause of long-term disability, there's really a need for organizations to take a look at that. So we just find that, focus there and make the most impact as possible.
I love it. Yeah, focus is key to progress. And what emerging trends and technologies have you seen here or are you experiencing that you feel is going to change healthcare in the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, it's evident if you walk around, you're going to see the word AI pretty much on every booth. And while AI is going to play a large role in changing the efficiency of the services that we provide, I think one of the things that you're going to see is a consolidation of the platforms that are out there. So there's probably 2,000 vendors here, and they're all doing something very similar. And so you're going to constantly see this reorganization of vendors that are out there, a little bit of assimilation into those organizations and mergers and acquisitions. And I think that's really going to drive healthcare forward in making sure that instead of having a lot of Me Too type of technologies that are out there, you're going to have best of class because there's things that we're going to merge and bring into single source solutions.
Consolidation. And how has AI impacted virtual neurology specifically, right? The business you guys run, and why should hospitals care about it?
Yeah, so we'll take a step back, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. What was AI in virtual neurology was really in imaging. So you had Viz AI, Rapid AI, Brainomics. These organizations developed algorithms where you can run a brain scan through an AI platform and kind of figure out if there was a brain clot, where that might be, or if it was a bleed. And that really changed the delivery of virtual neurology. At Sevaro, we've taken it to the next level to help us triage which patients we should be focusing on. So hospitals, health systems, nurse educators, the American Heart Association has done a really great job of educating on the symptoms of a stroke. And so more and more patients are being picked up with the BFAST acronym. And what is happening is now everything is being called in as a stroke in the emergent setting. So if you have a less number of neurologists available, but more stroke consults coming in, you got to figure out which patients do I actually focus on. So we're utilizing a triage AI platform on the front end to make sure that we are devoting the vascular neurologist to the patient that they can actually help in the moment, and making sure that those patients that are flooding in get seen, but in a timely manner based off of the acuity of the situation.
Is that something that is made available in the ER as a virtual consult?
Correct. Yep. So if there's a health institution, a system that has Sevaro Health, when they call in to access one of our vascular neurologists in the emergency setting, they'll be routed through our triage platform, and we'll use AI to figure out, is this patient acuity necessary for a stroke emergent consult, or is it something we can take care of later on that day?
Cool. And then to do that, you need an image, right? Or how does that, walk me through the process.
Yeah.
I just want to better understand it.
Yep, great. So the imaging actually takes place a little bit later on in the journey of that patient in the ED.
Okay.
But up front, a patient might come in and their symptoms are, this is dizziness and tingling of fingers. But if we don't have a clear understanding of that patient's last known normal, when was the last time that they felt like they didn't have these symptoms, then the algorithm to treat that patient is going to be a little bit differently. So in stroke care, you have thrombolytics, which is a medication we can give to break up that clot, but it has to be given within a window of time frame of that patient's last known normal. So if it's, I felt fine 24 hours ago and I didn't come into the hospital, or 48 hours ago, we're limited on the what we can provide to that patient in the moment. So we still want to see that patient, but if I've got another patient coming in from another health system at the same time for a stroke code, and their last known normal was an hour ago, well, I need to treat this patient now, and I'm going to get to that patient in a few minutes.
Sure. Love it. Thanks for walking us through the process.
Of course.
It's fascinating. What are the top 3 ideas that health systems should consider as they think about growing their digital health footprint through the use of your solution, virtual neurology?
Well, I would say the first thing to do is really take a look at their neurology coverage. So, you have probably 8,000 hospitals in the US, give or take, and a very small portion, less than 50%, actually have teleneurology, virtual neurology to provide emergent stroke consults. So that would be the first thing that I would look at, because what often happens is those smaller hospitals that believe they don't have the right level of services or care to provide that type of acuity of care, they're going to send those patients somewhere else. And so they're losing a lot of revenue and the ability to treat those patients locally. That's better for the patient. They don't want to be shipped out to the larger tertiary care center. They want to stay local. And the reimbursement model there is pretty high. So you're always going to get a high ROI. That would be the first thing that I would enact. As it relates to taking a couple of next steps, is really about thinking about how to create a continuum of care model in virtual neurology instead of an episodic care model. So what typically happens is you implement a virtual neurology solution, you need access to that neurologist, and you request a consult, they provide the care. They may or may not document in your EHR. You may or may not talk to that physician again for 60 days, just based off of the way that these organizations are set up. And so start to think about, well, if I see this patient on the acute side and I want to round on them, and then maybe I want to get them into an outpatient teleneurology. So that's really what we're focusing on, is helping these health systems build models where they can keep their patients within their system and think about how to connect them in the moment to the right level of care.
That's awesome. It makes a whole lot of sense. Very practical. You could solve for loss of patient volumes, revenue leaks, and ultimately improve outcomes.
There's a lot to consider there for neurology because it's a leading cause of disability, right? You get the aging population, as I mentioned earlier, so more and more neurological diseases are going to become prevalent. And as 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 each day. So it's somewhere where we see a lot of health systems are not taking advantage of the market.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome opportunity to solve for this challenge. And we've seen it. We've seen this done in mental health, for example. The primary care physician doesn't really understand how to deal with these problems. In comes a mental health professional virtually. Why can't we do it with neurology?
We can. Actually, I spent the first 9 years of my career in telepsychiatry.
Oh, you did?
So, yep.
Oh, cool.
I built many of those models, co-locating virtual telepsychiatry in the PCP office, revolutionized that. There's many health systems haven't taken advantage of that. Obviously, with COVID, there was a huge boom in telepsychiatry, telebehavioral health. Those are the same types of ideas that we're trying to get out there now to health systems for virtual neurology. And the technologies exist. It's really about figuring out what is their appetite to bring that in and what are their what's the goals of the system. There's competing priorities within any organization.
Yeah.
And we see that virtual neurology should be top of mind.
Love that. Well, folks, there you have it. Another awesome innovation from Vive, here with the outstanding Branden Robinson, Chief Growth Officer at Sevaro Health. I guess, Branden, one last thing. What closing thought would you leave us with? And then where can people reach you and the Sevaro team?
Yeah, I would say my closing thought is, health systems have this opportunity now because of the growth of mechanical thrombectomies to do surgical procedures to remove clots and improve outcomes for patients suffering from either stroke as it relates to ischemic stroke or, bleeds in the brain. And so they have an opportunity to develop hub and spoke models where they can feed their larger comprehensive thrombectomy capable stroke centers with virtual health. And that's really the idea here that we're trying to put out at Vive, is that they can bring virtual innovation to their neuroscience programs, but you have to have the right partner, right? It can't be, as again, I mentioned, an episodic type of approach. It's got to be something thought out. And at Sevaro, we've been doing this for 4 years. We have 150 health systems that work with us. And it's really a partnership to think through what are the goals of that system. So if they're interested in learning more about that, you can obviously reach us at sevaro.com. Branden@sevaro.com is my email. I'm happy to set up a meeting, chat with you all. Obviously, I'll be here at Vive for the next couple of days, VIOSC 2237.
Love it. What an awesome opportunity, folks, to take healthcare to the next level with Branden and the Sevaro team. In the show notes, we'll leave all the ways to get in touch with Branden and his team at the company. So make sure you reach out. Now's the time to make change happen in outcomes for your organization. Branden, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This podcast is produced by Outcomes Rocket, your healthcare exclusive digital marketing agency. Outcomes Rocket exists to help healthcare organizations like yours to maximize their impact and accelerate growth. Visit outcomesrocket.com or text us at 312-224-9945.